Likud lawmaker Nir Barkat, a rising star in Israeli national politics. Success seems to follow Barkat around. He's an extraordinarily successful businessman and startup investor. And in politics, he was a very popular mayor of Jerusalem for 10 years. 5 years ago, he even stopped an armed terrorist from carrying out an attack outside of a popular market in Jerusalem. And in his very first jump into national politics in the Likud party primary, he earned a top 10 finish. And now Netanyahu has made it official. If Likud wins the election, Barkat will be the next finance minister of Israel. And he's with us now alongside Ariel Kahana. Mr. Barkat, thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. You'll be presenting your vision, your agenda, really, as what you want to achieve as finance minister. There's a lot of things in your proposal, but just talk to me, for the interest of time, about your priority, what you believe you can handle first and you can make a big difference in right away as finance minister.
With your permission, Jeff, the Israeli public has two options. Who is going to lead the economy in the next government? Is it going to be Benny Gantz, that went bankrupt on the first thing he's done, or Nissan Cohen, which is a union, he's a clerk in the union, or on the other hand, myself as an entrepreneur, as chairman of Checkpoint, one of the largest security companies in the world, and managed the city of Jerusalem, one of the most complex cities in the world. Almost 1 million people, 9 billion shekels, 10,000 employees, which is more than any average ministry around.
Okay, so Netanyahu
with the support of Netanyahu.
He believes you have the chops.
With the support of Netanyahu. So the two options are entrepreneurial and thinking, supported by Netanyahu, that has great understanding of the global markets, or a bankrupt prime minister potential, and somebody that came from the unions. It's a huge difference in the approach.
Okay. What are you going to do? That's what Jeff was asking. What are you going to do as a finance minister?
So let me give you a few points of the plan. And first of all, we want to dramatically improve quality of life by doing the following points. First, dramatic decrease in cost of food. We're going to lower the tariffs or decrease tariffs.
Just one step. How are you going to do it?
It works the way the whole world works. You reduce all the tariffs for importing food and goods, and you decrease the regulations. Today, the cost of food in Israel is 30% higher than the OECD around the world. And so it's mainly because of that reason. Then what you do is you subsidize and support the agriculture and some local businesses in the country. Eventually, if you decrease the tariffs and give direct subsidies, eventually you have enough money even left on the table for improving Israel's economy. Right, that's number one. Number two, increase the price of housing. We're going to more than double and dramatically
expand the availability of housing, not the price.
Both. They go together. The more availability of new houses, the lower the prices. You have to dramatically expand the supply side. And we're going to do that by...
Everyone talks about that. Lapid talked about that too when he was finance minister. Everyone talks about more housing and building more housing and giving middle-class families the opportunity to buy. You can't buy. It's almost impossible to buy a reasonable down payment.
So I'll explain how you do that. The method is the key. Today there's a lot of land. The land authority is stingy in releasing land. I want to dramatically take all land owned by government all around the country and dramatically give the opportunity to develop it to the local authorities and to the private sector. Take out this monopoly approach of the government and open up and release huge amount of land for the benefit of entrepreneurs and local governments. They know how to do it much, much better than the government. So it's a change and shift in thinking, in opening up the market.
I want to ask a real
one more point.
Politics. If we can move on, just because I want to...
One more point. Huge investments in healthcare. We're going to develop 4 new hospitals. We're going to dramatically increase the number of beds, invest in decreasing the lines and the huge load in the hospitals. I know how to do that.
Billions of shekels. Where you have the money from?
That's
Other finance ministers have made exactly the same promise. The money is the problem.
Growth, growth, growth. We have huge amount of technology. I know, I come from there. We're going to develop the 5G, take all the huge big data. We have huge advantage in that in Israel. Healthcare we could scale the healthcare in our country. Of course, cyber, agro-tech, desert tech in the Negev. these areas that I know very well, we could dramatically scale growth. We're going to help small businesses scale.
Okay.
We have a plan for that. So altogether, there's huge growth that eventually enables the government to dish out and do all these things.
I want to ask a real political question here, and many analysts believe, and they say that being finance minister is kind of a poison apple, that you get to be a senior minister, but this is a really, it hurts anyone's political future, and it's used kind of as a political weapon. Do you think perhaps Netanyahu thinks of you as a real threat, a real rival, and he's kind of putting you into a very difficult spot? You're laying out a very ambitious plan here on the program. Is Netanyahu trying to trap you as finance minister?
I'm an entrepreneur, and I see how we could take Israel to make a huge leap forward in its economy, catch up, get into the top 10 biggest economies in the world in GDP, which makes sure that our residents will benefit for this dramatic way. I know how to do that.
Well,
I came to public sector.
He thought he could do it. Kahlon thought he could get this done too.
Well, I think my background as an entrepreneur, and I've demonstrated that both in the private sector and in the public sector as mayor of Jerusalem, I know that we can get this done. So does Netanyahu. We share the same vision. We understand how we could take the best economy Israel has ever been, where we are right now, and take it to the next level. There's no doubt in my mind we can get that done. And it's probably that approach that pushes me to continue working for a shekel a year for the benefit of the Israeli public.
Okay.
It can be done.
Will you be appointed the day after the elections, I mean on March 3rd, or just if Netanyahu will have the majority to establish a government?
Well, naturally, to get all these things done, we have to win the elections. And I think that the public has to decide on the economic side. Naturally, there's other elements. Of course, security and global management of the relationship with all the world, which I think Netanyahu is far superior than inexperienced Benny Gantz, that in blue and white can never give such a...
Gantz, but Netanyahu, we saw in the last year, actually, most of the ministers in the government were appointed, although it's a minority government, actually. So Netanyahu can appoint you the day after the elections.
Whenever he decides. Whenever I trust Netanyahu, he understands how to lead this country very, very well. He's by far the best leader Israel has and probably had, and we want him to continue leading us. On the economic side...
It means that if Netanyahu will not win the election, and that's what we see now in the polls, it means that you won't be appointed.
I think that's exactly what we need to share with the public. The risk here, by losing the election, is not just election. It's the future of Israel in terms of security and international affairs, and also economically. Naturally, we got to get elected to get what I've shared with you done.
I want to move to another topic, if we could, which is the Trump peace plan. As a longtime mayor of Jerusalem, you know the streets inside and out. You know the people, perhaps better than anyone. The U.S. peace plan calls for a Palestinian state, calls for a capital in Abu Dis. Do you support a Palestinian state with a capital in Abu Dis?
I do not. And I will fight to make sure it does not happen.
But Netanyahu supports the Trump plan.
Yet, the plan has, for the first time, many, many new ideas and thoughts that put all the pressure on the Palestinians. They have to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. They have to recognize Jerusalem, the unity of the city of Jerusalem. They have to do many, many things, deny terror and fight terror. They have to do so many things in that plan, even before they come to the table. So I see many, many good things in the plan. Naturally, I object to the Palestinian state, but I see other elements in it that will dramatically change the position between Israel and the Palestinians. And I do believe that it'll never eventually come to the table because the Palestinians don't miss an opportunity to miss, and they are going to dismiss the whole plan. And we believe many elements of the plan we probably agree with, but we disagree with the Palestinian state.
So we didn't mention you were actually last week in a trip to the U.S. Netanyahu called you back from there, and you have your own ties with the administration. I know that. Now the talk is about sovereignty actions by Israel in Judea and Samaria. Do you support that? Do you support annexation or sovereignty again? To do it now before the elections, after the elections, in one step, in many steps? How do you see this issue?
Well, of course, I support the move. I also believe and proposed in the economic plan of how to scale Judea and Samaria in terms of economy. We would like to develop tourism through Bible stories in Judea and Samaria and leverage this beautiful land of the Bible. We want to make sure that Bible lovers around the world can come and enjoy see sites like Shiloh where
What are
the
your thoughts
cabinet
on the timetable? This was a very, because originally there was a timetable that was supposed to be done in a security cabinet meeting this month.
Netanyahu to do this in cooperation with the U.S. administration in a way that will benefit us most. The timing depends on the relationship Netanyahu has with the administration, of course, President Trump, Jared Kushner, and other friends, and I trust their judgment to be able to do it in the best timely manner with the support of the United States.
On that point, are you perhaps worried about a Democrat winning the U.S. election later this year? Yes, Netanyahu has a tremendous relationship with Trump, but we have many Democratic candidates. The top candidates are talking about conditioning the U.S. aid to Israel, leveraging the aid, suspending the aid, not following through on the Trump peace plan at all. Are you worried what would happen if a Democrat wins?
Well, naturally, yes, because we know to trust Trump. But I'm as concerned, God forbid, if Gantz wins these elections. Gantz will never be able to take this plan into action because he's totally reliant on Ahmed Tibi.
Why are you worried about an American Democratic candidate?
Because we don't know who that is, and usually the Democrats are different than the Republicans vis-a-vis the peace plan. And I know that once the President Trump came out with a plan, I would like to make sure he mentors us or continues the plan side by side with Netanyahu. The risk is bigger here in Israel. Benny Gantz will never, blue and white, will never be able to fulfill this plan for a few reasons. First of all, they are totally dependent on Ahmed Tibi and 13 mandates, Arab mandates that will never agree. They've said so, that they will never support the plan. And also, I think he's, in blue and white, you find a bit of blue and a bit of white. They're totally confused between themselves. They do not support, like all of the 55 or 56 or maybe hopefully 61 members that are right of center bloc.
It's clear you won't support blue and white or Gantz, but I want to ask you about Netanyahu. You are the mayor of Jerusalem, and it's well known you fought the corruption that used to be in the municipality of Jerusalem. How can you support a candidate to prime minister, which is going to be taken to court in a few days with very harsh allegations?
Well, I believe in the law. And the law clearly says that prime minister in Israel can serve as prime minister side by side to a court case that he has against him. I also believe in the value of he's innocent until proven guilty. So for me, it's a legal process that he has to manage, but his knowledge and his experience and the fact that he is innocent until proven guilty.
Can he manage the trial and the government in the same time?
Of course he can. I mean, he's demonstrated in the past that he knows how to work in complex situations. I've seen him. When I came to the cabinet as mayor of Jerusalem many, many times, when you had security challenges in the city, I saw how calm he is and how he manages the situation, complex situations. And even now, I see him. I've been meeting him the last few days, the last few weeks, and the last week to prepare our economic plan, which we're showing today. And I saw how sharp he is, his knowledge and experience, second to none. Definitely Benny Gantz, with the lack of experience he has in economy and in global understanding, the gaps are so huge that you cannot compare the two options.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Ariel Kahana, great to have you in studio with me. And Mr. Nir Barkat, sir, thank you so much for being with us. A pleasure to have you.